Michael, who's in your group?
Cammy, Ben, and Maddie.
Okay.
Did you get Ben's email?
Huh?
Did you
I
see
got-
Ben's email?
I saw Ben's email, okay? So you have to decide, you know what I mean? You,
Decide.
whether you want him in your group.
No, yeah, we all said it's okay.
Oh, okay, that's fine, okay?
And
I
we
just
have,
want-
we have our idea.
Okay, so what is it?
It's basically like, making a physical casino use blockchain systems, to make them more efficient.
Okay,
And also using like Internet of Things technology.
so what do you, so you're evaluating, you're gonna produce something, you're gonna have a product? What are you gonna have? What's the end part? The problem is what? Casinos aren't efficient? What's the
Yeah.
problem? Who's this for? Is it like an online casino or these are physical
Like
casinos?
for physical casinos.
What?
For physical casinos because, basically like physical casinos have an issue with one fraud, two, game times are slow, and then the third issue is that they can track like millennials and younger because, they say that they like different things. So our idea is basically creating, instead of when you go to the cashier to get chips, you would get, you basically get a token that's paid to the dollar, and the casino has.
Okay, so the first thing you need to do is, check, and you can assign it to different people in the group and see what's available now.
So right
You know,
now,
because they're exploring it, you know what I mean? They
right
wanna
now
keep
they
it.
have it for online, and, it's a business idea that I actually had like 2 or 3 years ago. And there's, have you ever heard of IGN? It's a casino gaming company.
Yeah, but I don't know. Yeah,
Basically, they have a patent out right now for an idea that's similar.
okay, so how are you gonna be better?
Um,
What are you gonna sell different than they have?
we're gonna use smart contracts to validate each game. One of the issues that we have with that, it will be solved in like a few years, but right now the current.
You have a window of
blockchain-
opportunity, because they're gonna go into their massive, I mean, that really
Yeah.
fills tokens and filling in the fraud, that's really it. Okay, and Dylan, what was your idea? Who's in your group?
Chris and John.
Okay, so you wanna share it now or afterwards, or?
Can I share it afterwards?
Okay, yeah, sure, so you can share afterwards. Okay, so as I'm getting set up, we have a good class today. We are gonna have, coming in, Justin Wales, who's literally one of the top guys in blockchain and law. We're happy to hear that he's in Miami, but he goes around the whole world giving talks. He's also a graduate of Miami Law School. He graduated near or at the top of his class, and he really has, not only knows the whole area of blockchain, but he also has a passion for it. Remember how I'm always kind of insinuating to get you guys to have passion for your projects? He has a passion for this area. So he's been working in the crypto space, in the blockchain space, in the ICO, and he really knows what's happening in, with the Securities and Exchange Commission, what's happening with tokens. So if you see him come in, invite him in, he's scheduled to come a little bit later in the class, okay? So, and maybe later on, Michael, in terms of this, either we'll have time for questions and answers, and then you can stay with him. You know, I mean, I don't know how much he charges per hour, but for us, it's a free consult, so it's great. So I'm just thrilled. I was trying to get him earlier, but he's been traveling, and he said he'd love to come. This is the one date he can make it, so we registered him on the way there. So I just wanted to let everybody know that I'm just so excited that we get somebody with his caliber, that you guys with your advice that you can help. What other ways in which we wanted to do it? So, let me get set up here. And can you make a roll for me, Conchetta? Get out a sheet of paper. Put our regular ways, and then put update proposal. What's due, let me just put a note here, what's due on Monday? What day is Monday? Anybody know? What day is it? Huh? 29, right? October 29th is printout proposal and put a place there for me to sign off for your approval. Put that in your notes. So can you pass that around, if you're so kind? Are these on, Dan, or is this
Yeah,
on?
they're both on.
It's pointing?
Yeah.
Or is it pointing? Okay, get your name tags out so we can begin class. People were asking me where they can see the live broadcast and also in archive. Where do you go? You go to steemit.com/@the-psycho, like psychology, company. As you can see here, let's see if this works. You can see here artificial intelligence, blockchain, smart contracts, utility, security tokens, guest speaker, Justin Wales. Let's see if this works. You click here and you'll be able to see us live. Let's see if this works. Let's go back to studio. Live streaming. Start the broadcast. Okay. And screen share. Entire screen. And let's go to courses. Let's see what's going on. Courses.miami.edu. it. So I'm gonna enter a passcode. I log in. Remember me for 30 days. Okay. So I'm in, that's a good start, right? Good start there. Okay. We'll go to the 210 audit, fundamentals of business technology. We'll go to course documents. Okay. So Vanessa, Madeline, and Eden.
Yeah,
So what's up?
well, we were thinking of doing,
Did you put it up?
yeah,
Okay. What were you thinking to do?
basically just like a software that can be implemented throughout large companies where maybe not everything is in one location where everyone can easily communicate. So it's efficient with time. And also like web conferencing where you can like, video chat throughout the company and kind of just have like an area where there's different departments and the person in each department, so you can just easily find information.
So what's the problem?
The problem is just the amount of time it takes to have to find the stuff like throughout a company who maybe doesn't have.
Okay, like knowledge about a company?
Yeah.
Like if you're new to a company and I need to
Yeah.
set up find out how to get reimbursed for travel?
Or if you just wanna communicate with someone and there's just so many people in many departments, you can, it's kind of just like, kind of like a Facebook thing where you just like chat them instead of having to call them if they're on the other line or something.
Okay, so what do you wanna create?
Just like, an app that allows you to do that, I guess.
Okay. There's something, have you heard of Skype for Business? For instance, there's something, you know Skype, of course,
Yeah.
right? What, Microsoft developed, bought Skype. And then they had another product, just like what you're saying, is a collaboration technique where I have everybody in the organization and I can talk, I can, video conference them, I can talk to them. So look at Skype for Business and see what you can add on to something like that. Because you're not gonna create an entire, I just don't, it's not clear, who else is in your group? Okay. So among you, I need it, maybe we can talk offline, but we gotta figure out what can you contribute. You're not gonna start an entire new collaboration tool. Is maybe what you can do is see what's available in a number of, look for business collaboration tools like Skype for Business and see what's missing, and you may then do some add-ons to those. You understand? Then create, there's something already existing that they use in company, large organization, and something like, do you know Slack? Okay, so the first thing we need to do as your group is we gotta look at more business team-related collaboration tools and find out what are those issues there, and then we need to move. Okay? Do you understand? Because I want to take the time to do this. You can learn from each other, but it also I want to have just not research, but what can you contribute to it? What are we doing differently? And I want it to be real, not just hypothetical. I'm going to create a new business collaboration tool where they exist already. What are the issues of those that are not? Okay, So Dan and Evan, what do we conclude? Do we need to talk offline about this?
What do you mean?
I don't know, Evan, you were going to see me tonight?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Okay, so let's talk about that tonight. Okay, Renee, Leah, and Noah, what's up? Did we do anything new?
We didn't really add much.
Did you add anything? What is much? Did you revise it, or no? So it's not much. Okay, all right. Group 5, Jamie, Kelsey, and Spencer. So what's up? Spencer?
Is Spencer in this class anymore?
I don't know, so take them off.
I don't think he's here anymore.
So take them off.
I don't know what he looks like.
Okay, I don't even either, I don't either. So I'm just saying, if you don't, can you imagine me?
Yeah.
Okay, so take them off, right?
On it.
Fix, that you can do already. So have we done anything? Have we proposed anything?
Yeah.
So what did we propose?
Came up with the idea of an application
Mhm.
for like your laptop for, basically, to solve the problem of trying to be focused and working on something and you like being distracted on your computer. And there already are like applications out there, but they just block out like the internet in general.
What do you want to block out the world?
Yeah. we want to like block out like certain things and you could do it for like a
What
certain
are like
time.
certain things? Give
Yeah.
me an example of a certain thing.
Like don't block out like search engines that you need while you're like in class. So like when we're talking about something and you ask us to look something up, like that wouldn't be blocked off. But like say social media would be blocked off or like
It's almost like for some of the cable stations, you can block
Yeah.
certain channels that your kids can watch or something young children can watch.
mhm.
And what is available there? So have you researched what's available now?
Yeah, there's an application called Self Control
Okay.
that like Macs have. I did some research on that and then
Okay, so what you need to do is do more research on what are the competitors, put those together. You may even want to summarize what is available, what are the features that they have, and then maybe even a blend of list, Kelsey, list like what are all the features of this one, that one, and maybe there will be combining of a number of features of what you're proposing. Okay, and let's talk if we need to. Okay, and did you look at security and utility tokens, or you just created the folder?
no, I did some research on it.
Okay, all right, we'll get to it in a minute. Okay, and then, who wants to admit this is their Zoom file? Hmm? Can you do me a favor, Kelsey? Eliminate, delete this, because we don't need to see this, right? The Zoom file here, nobody's gonna take credit. Okay, Conchetta, Claudine, and Vanessa, what's up, guys?
Alright, so we're gonna do like the facial
Did you write it something or no?
No.
Okay, so tell me and then you'll write it. Okay, what do you wanna do?
Facial recognition for marketers, so like create an app for marketers to use, and depending on the user's facial expression is what the ads are gonna target to them.
Okay. So what you need to do, write this down, is you need to first, there's a lot of work being done on that, okay? So you need to research what are the case studies, what are proposed, what exists in terms of facial recognition and using for marketing. Do you want to recognize a person or just their sentiments? Do you want to, okay, just their sentiments, and then do you want to identify them as this is a female, looks
Yeah.
like between 20 and 25 or something like that? So you want to look at those, and then another part you want to address, are you writing these down? And another part you want to address is what are the ethical considerations here? You know, like the cat is out of the box here, you know, but it's the idea, I'm gonna be now, I don't feel so good, and they're already letting me know, you know, my mood score as I go around the world, right? So I have to smile or pretend that I'm smiling all the time, right? Or being upset or whatever, you know? So those are the areas, they exist, so the idea is, we gotta figure out, are you proposing something new? The first thing is, let's do a review. Everyone sign in, yes? Pick up. So let's get up and pick up. And then when you're finished, please be so kind and bring it back to me. And then you wanna first find out what is available now, and what do you think is missing, or what isn't, and then look at what actually exists do two parts, what is proposed and what actually is existing. And look up, there's a South Florida, there's even a Miami company that's doing it. And I'll do my research too, and you can try to find them too, I met with them. And they're even in South Florida that are trying to do it like on billboards and things like that, okay? And then we'll talk about what you can contribute after that, what can you realistically contribute? Because I don't want it to be so much in the air that you say, hey, we have no chance of even making a dent. Okay, so Michael, so this is what you wanted to do, and who's in your group? So you're adding Ben,
Yeah.
so is he here?
No, I'm not on here. No.
Okay, what? Are you here and listed?
I'm not listed.
Okay, so list yourself. Okay, list yourself, and then, Michael, what you need to do then is then put up tasks of what everybody's gonna be doing for the project, because what's difficult? Is getting everybody to participate equally. Have you ever been in groups where one person or a couple people do something, and one person just anybody been in that kind of group? No, only me? I'm the only one, right, and nobody else? Okay. So one of the things, and then what we'll do next is we'll start doing what I call agile development. What's agile development? Who can tell me? Who can raise their hand and tell me what agile development is? Ben, do you know? So you look it up, right? You're gonna move. Okay, what's agile development, Shauna?
Keep working on it to make it better.
Right, you basically take small tasks, doable tasks, like what's gonna be for Monday? So what I want you to do, we can decide is who wants to be, take on the group leader type of position, but every time there has to be, and you're gonna need to make notes here on your project, as stated, we'll even make a sheet here, stated, today's date, what is due for Monday, which is getting our proposal set, but even after Monday is, what is the task at hand to be done, and who's assigned to do it? Do you understand, Michael? So what's gonna be is then we're waiting for the clock here to do it. So every time I'm gonna meet, makes sense, isn't it? Learning how to work as a group, and guess what? We're gonna have to work virtually, we're gonna have to work physically. This whole world, if we don't figure out how to work successfully in a group situation, it's gonna be hard. And then our whole project's gonna be suffering because one of the persons didn't take their way. And if after a while, in a couple of weeks, they don't take their way, it may be a way in which to say, listen, you need to do this, we're documenting it, and one of the things is we can do conferencing as well. Everybody clear what is gonna be my part? Very good. Shauna, very good. Okay, in terms of group 9, Sam, Zach, and Lawrence, do me a first thing is somebody should correct it that you're group 8, not 9. So 7 and 9 don't go together unless there's 8 somewhere. Okay, so what are we doing?
Okay, so our idea is to use, to create a blockchain network pretty much that connects students. First, we'll start off just at the same university who are taking the same classes, and then provide, well, either, we're not sure yet whether we want to make it a website or an app. But
We can do both.
We could do both, yeah.
I definitely do the website describing our ideas, and then we'll have the app on the side. But everybody, my requirement for everybody at least have the website describing your entire project, who's on your team, right, and what's available to them. Okay, yes.
And so then to connect students who are taking the same classes and provide them with more resources for their classes. And then primarily to have a messaging feature in which they could connect and decide where to take it with them, whether they want to meet them in person or through some other site. And then also we were thinking of potentially connecting the app to Skype in order for them to Skype directly.
Okay, good. So the thing is here, this doesn't need to be limited to Miami.
Well, that was our first thing. I uploaded a Word document with.
Okay, so definitely we don't want to limit it, but we're going to use them as a prototype, right? It'd be silly to create a company that is just towards this. After you graduate, and they may not adopt it too, so we want to use them and your students as prototypes. Okay, so what's for Monday then, for you guys?
So right now we have Word document with the proposal, we're gonna add on to that, and from there, print that out and everything.
Okay, and then what I would do even between now and Monday is set up what is the next thing. What I do in more detail, the next part is I do in more detail of what's available and what's available now with the companies and the features and what do you find is the positive features and what seems to be lacking. And put them together, just like I told the other group. Everybody understand? Because what you want to do is, why am I any different? Why reinvent the wheel? And that's why you guys need to go back with that collaboration, software, is try to figure out, we almost need to define it together, you know what I mean, to find out, if we're not gonna start creating something that exists already. Okay, very good. Okay, I'm pleased with that. Okay, what do I got next? So did you fix it? So fix your group, either Sam, Zach, or Lawrence, fix it so your group 8, and then John, Chris, Dylan, you wanna talk offline or you wanna tell me now?
I think Chris had that.
Okay, so what was your idea? Oh, so that was Chris's idea when you were coming. Okay, so what's the idea, Chris?
So, ours is regarding the music industry and like putting like blockchain into it. So a big problem we have now is that with technology being so like available and developing so quickly, it's really easy to just rip music off the internet
Right.
without giving credit or
Right,
paying
right,
anyone.
right.
And so what happens is, with technology also being so widespread, making music is also something very common. Like, there's
Yeah.
a lot of producers now.
Okay, are you in the music?
I'm
Are
not.
you, huh?
I'm not.
Is anyone in music in your group? Anyone in the class in music? Anybody play? Okay. All right, so have you looked yet on who's? Okay, the competition is, there's a lot, what you need to do, the first thing, you couldn't know, everybody in your group, is you have to look at what are, even put Google searches, blockchain of music. You have to search, there are a number of companies now that are starting to do with digital rights and understand. What I do for Monday is create something where you understand who are the real competitors, not only just the Yelp and the Google reviews, but who is now proposing to do blockchain and music.
I think this is like we have like 2 up there by accident.
Okay.
This is like the other one.
Okay, so, all right. So put the correct one.
Yeah. No, it's Chris Monto.
Okay. Oh, okay. So put them into your group. So go back, Chris, work with the group together.
Right, yeah.
I think it's good, and do it in terms of digital rights and things, and then look through what is available now. Because what I saw was available, I mentioned to you before, even I told you that in South Florida, they were having a hackathon a number of months ago for who could create basically a use case for blockchain and music. And I think a number of people, Medina here was putting in money, and Pitbull was putting in money, and they're really going out. And he was saying, how many times does his music, I guess he's getting older too, he's not as hip as he used to be. So he's probably thinking, I better be making my money. That's my side musical review problems. Okay, so let's, Dylan, you were asking me about it, so let's do that. But for Monday, let's do that agile development, is sit down after the class and decide who's gonna be looking at what, and then creating what's really, getting in depth of what are these use cases look like, and then how can you contribute and how can you add something unique. Okay? And then change your group number too. Chris or Dylan, change it. Okay, Greta, Emmanuel, what do we got?
So we're still talking about we're probably still based it on Apple Wallet or Google Wallet or any wallet that you can put in your phone and have in your phone. So what we're gonna do is just just do more research about how are they good and what makes them not so good. So we can see
So what's your end product gonna be?
like a security app, how can we make
Okay,
a
so
better app?
what's the next step?
Right now, we're only just looking, just reading about it.
Okay, so let's write up something, the same thing, that what is the closest things that are available now in use case? Okay? Okay. Alec, Rob, Aaron, what's up? Matt, what do we got? What do we end up doing?
I mean, we're still on the real estate idea.
Yeah,
I mean,
did you get my email?
yeah, I did. I looked into the deep coin. That was kind of different than what we're doing. I mean, it
Okay.
could like go alongside,
Yeah.
but it wasn't like, that was kind of looking for like matching with like an agent
Right, and
versus
and
like
doing that,
actually buying.
right. I still know about that,
Yeah.
about that tying the, you know, I can see about buying it, but tying my worth. And then once I have it, then what am I gonna do with it? I buy it from you for, so many thousands of Bitcoin. Now what am I gonna do with my house? What am I gonna put my house?
Kind of just an investment.
My house is in my investment, but how is it tied to Bitcoin? I just think that's,
We're working on it.
yeah, I go from, I do more on an easier step, because then you have to own it. I do an easier step of trying to find something in real estate that you can put on the blockchain.
Okay.
Do smaller on that, okay? So, we changed it, okay, and then change your number to group 9, okay? Dylan, and then, make yours 10, then Greta, okay? Alex, Rob, and then, okay, and Nick, AJ, and Chad, are any of you here? No? Not good. Okay, and then, William and Spiros, what's up?
We're kind of like, don't really know what to do, but we kind of had this idea like last night about like,
Is this it or no?
no, we kind of changed from that. We're
Okay.
pretty behind, I think.
Okay,
We're thinking about like trying to develop like a campus parking app, almost to try and find like parking availability. We thought at least that would be something relevant.
but so if you're gonna do that, is, they do exist. I know that they exist from certain cities that I'm gonna find certain available parking, you know, that they do, so you're gonna have to do research and do first the research and then get back to me on parking, for cities. I've seen that where they'll tell you, you know, a crowded city, these are, if I'm involved, I'm leaving my spot, or this spot is available and you can get it.
Okay.
It's an interesting idea, but maybe what you can do is some of those parking apps that exist already, you can make it somehow campus incentivized.
Like a smaller scale.
No, but even incentivize, you know, once I have it, I can incentivize people for sharing. You know, when I'm leaving and I give it to you, and think about it, it's almost in a way that I can incentivize other students to participate. So think about it almost as a college campus parking, but with incentives or with sponsors. You got it?
Yeah.
Because they exist. So taking one and then modifying it for campuses and seeing how maybe universities can get some funds out of it, and even students having the cars can have fun. Or maybe you want to do it in order to reduce the parking, have something where you're sharing
Okay.
rides or something to classes, that you can match people with classes and rides. Because what's the problem is we have limited parking and more for the environment and other things. We don't want people to use their individual cars, you know, like on campus, first year, they don't let you have a car on campus.
Okay.
So something along those lines rather than just a parking app. How does that sound?
That's good.
Okay. But make it around the college and then that you could proceed with it. Okay, Cody, so Cody, you're on your own group or what?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Okay. So, let me just make sure. Okay, so let's do this. Okay, let me go to web links. I'm in the wrong class, that's what happened. Okay, did I finish did everybody then redo your parts? And redo the numbering, can you be so kind, Dan? So I got 8, 9, 10. So, Matt, redo the numbering of 11, and then I guess if somebody, they can go in and renumber, Nick and, group, the rest. Hey, just perfect timing, perfect timing. Great. So, Justin, how are you?
Good.
Good. So this is my grade class. And I bragged about you, okay? I told them that you were smart. And what else did I say? That you're really in the leading edge. And what I'd like you to do is, these are business students.
Undergrad?
Undergrad. So sit down, we're recording too, so be good to sit, in the middle or whatever, and you tell me where you want me to go.
Okay.
They're business students, and they're from different areas, finance, marketing, a number of them. And they have, and they're learning about business technology and how to make better decisions, and they're getting introduced to blockchain. They have a basic understanding of blockchain, and they're trying to do projects.
Okay, what does that mean, project?
Projects meaning either projects that somehow they're going to be looking at what problem to solve, and they're gonna try to, with technology, try to solve the problems. Some of them are gonna be looking at they're thinking maybe a use case of blockchain in real estate.
Sure.
Who else is doing, gonna do something, blockchain in music?
Okay.
Blockchain, what was yours, Dan? And they're thinking maybe in finance
Student loans?
kind of thing.
Yeah.
The
Okay.
fintech, they're also thinking in forecasting, marketing.
Okay.
They're thinking about it. So what I'd like you to share with everyone here is we have about, we'll go to like 6, and then I'll have them stay with you and answer. How's your time frame?
No, I have until 7:30.
Okay, good. Okay, so we'll talk about, you can take a little bit of time with them, and then we can chat as well. So what I'd like you to do is, one, give an overview of blockchain. Overview, first of all, introduce yourself.
Sure.
Where are you going now with your profession? What is basically, I asked them to look a little bit about tokens. You can talk about a little bit of the security and utility token for them, and the overall, basically, what should they need to know about blockchain?
Sure.
And maybe you can talk about, some of them are pre-law, some of them are gonna be are thinking about law school, so I said that may be a good niche even.
Yeah.
In terms of this.
So who here is planning on going to law school or thinking about it? A couple, okay. And like in corporate law, or do you know what kind of law you wanna do? Okay, I didn't know really when I went to law school either. So my name's Justin Wales. I graduated from UM Law in 2012. I work at a firm called Carlton Fields, which is a pretty large law firm downtown. I work out of the Miami office and the Los Angeles office primarily, and I run the firm's blockchain and virtual currency.
Do you have are you on the site, the website?
If you go to justinwales.com, it'll just
Okay,
link you to
Justin.
the website.
Okay, wait, not Justin Bieber, what comes up?
So I run the firm's blockchain and virtual currency practice group. What I do is I focus predominantly on transactional and regulatory issues in the space, but my actual background is in First Amendment in constitutional law. So there's actually quite a lot of overlap between technology and expressive rights. So I just sent, for instance, yesterday, Stanford is publishing a paper that I wrote applying the contours of the First Amendment to Bitcoin. And you might think, well, how is Bitcoin protected by the First Amendment? And we're going to go through that in order to give you an idea of like what actually is this technology. John Oliver, I don't know, did anyone see the Bitcoin John Oliver no? He calls Bitcoin, he says Bitcoin is everything you don't understand about money combined with everything you don't understand about computers. And I think for a lot of people that's true. So what we're going to try to do is get everyone to understand what is Bitcoin, and then through that you'll understand what blockchain and all these other applications are. So your professor said that you guys had an understanding of what blockchain was. Does anyone dare try to explain it to me? Yeah.
Like a virtual ledger that pretty much keeps track of anything of value being traded.
Okay, what are the characteristics of that public ledger?
That basically everyone, there's like a unanimous voting on the validity of the information.
A consensus mechanism, it's called, yeah.
And
It's decentralized, right? There's not one custodian. It's open. Anyone can go and write onto the ledger. So why does that matter? So we're going to go back in time to 2008. In 2008, some anonymous person, we don't know who it is, named Satoshi Nakamoto, published a paper called Bitcoin, an electronic peer-to-peer e-cash system. I think that was the title of it. And he published it to a very small group of cryptographers. And what he said was, the problem with state-run currency, right? The problem with currencies like the US dollar or the euro or the yen is that they are controlled by governments. And governments have no check on them that prevent them from creating more money. So what does that mean? That means that the money becomes inflated, the value decreases. It's up to the political whim of the politicians to make sure that the monetary supply is secure. So what he said is, I have an electronic version of money that doesn't require a central authority to warrant it. Now, there have been electronic versions of money before, right? But they've all failed. And why did they fail? It's because there's is anyone like a computer science background or know anything about electronics, computers? There's something called the double spend problem with electronic transactions. And what that means is, think about it this way. Think about if I had an MP3 of a song, and I sent it to you, and I said, this is the only copy available. Well, how do you know it's the only copy? It's so easy for me to go and make duplicates of that record and then send it to everyone else. So if I went and I said, I have Justin Cash, and I sent it to you, you have no way of really knowing whether I didn't also send that same amount of cash to everyone else in the world. It makes it very insecure to actually send electronic payments. Now you might say, well, I can send electronic payments through Visa, or I can send electronic payments through PayPal, or these other things. But that's actually a third party who's saying, we're just going to assume the risk of that transaction. We're going to control the ledger. We're going to make sure, to the best of our ability, that you actually have the money that you're trying to send. But if there's some problem, we're just going to assume the risk. And as a result, everyone's transaction needs, you have to pay a little more. Visa charges for every transaction it processes. They also have a lot of control over what types of transactions they allow you to actually make. So here's a great example. In 2010, WikiLeaks, are you familiar with them? Right? They allow you to anonymously publish onto their website essentially state secrets. So the Obama administration was upset because WikiLeaks published all this documentation about what we were doing in Iraq and put pressure on Bank of America, on Visa, on MasterCard, on all these payment processors, and said, the payment processors, we're no longer going to have any, we're no longer going to allow any donations made to Bitcoin, made to WikiLeaks. So Julian Assange went and he tweeted, and there's like a pretty famous tweet, and said, if you want to donate to WikiLeaks, donate in Bitcoin. That's actually how I found out about Bitcoin. I was in the law review office at University of Miami Law, right here. And I was on Twitter, and I saw this tweet, and I said, well, what is Bitcoin? And it sent me down this giant rabbit hole, which was very fortunate in retrospect. So what Satoshi did was he said, we're going to create a system in which there's not a individual or a centralized body validating transactions, and that is now what's called a blockchain. So all a blockchain is it's a database, right? So this is a block, and the block contains all sorts of transactions or data. Now, everyone in this room is in charge of validating this block. So what ends up happening is there's something called a SHA-256 hash function, which you don't really need to know about, but it's impressive that I do. And every computer in this room is trying to find the output of this function that matches to this block of data, right? And the point is that once you find that output, you can know with mathematical certainty whether all of these transactions are valid and not a double spend. So everyone in this room tries to find this number by just brute force. You're all running computers 24/7. Every 10 minutes or so, a new block is found. One of you is going to get it, and as a result, the system is going to reward you with newly minted Bitcoin. Then there's another block of data that everyone now tries to mine, and where it gets interesting and why blockchain and why Bitcoin's blockchain specifically, is this a better one? Yeah. Is so amazing is there's this hash function incorporates all of the data in this block. So this, you'll have like an output here, and then that output will be included in the input of this block. And then it goes on and on and on. And what that ends up doing is that if you wanted to go and try to overtake the system or make a fraudulent transaction or something like that, what you end up having to do is you have to go all the way back in time because they all incorporate each other. So that's generally a blockchain. Bitcoin's blockchain, in my mind, is in some ways the only blockchain anyone really needs. There's a lot of different versions of it, but there, I think at this point, are 13,000 nodes operating throughout the world, including one in space. There's a group called Blockstream that put one in space. What that means is that there's a complete record of every transaction ever made on Bitcoin, so you can actually go back in time and verify the validity of the entire blockchain. It's immutable, you can't change anything. It's open, meaning any one of you can go to the GitHub and run the protocol to be a validator, or you can go and mine Bitcoin if you have the hardware. There are other versions of blockchains that are available. Ethereum is another one. That one was made specifically to allow for smart contracts. Do you guys know what a smart contract is? Okay, so a smart contract is just an automatically executable program. So when I say that X needs to happen, Y occurs, I put that function onto a blockchain. So once the blockchain realizes that the X happens, it will automatically trigger the Y occurrence. And this is, it's a bit abstract now, but we're going to get into some examples of how this can actually be used. So Bitcoin, so let's talk about Bitcoin. There is Bitcoin with a big B and Bitcoin with a little b. Bitcoin with a big B is the network, right? It's computers all over the world running simultaneously, keeping the integrity of the blockchain, validating the integrity of the blockchain. Bitcoin with a little b is the virtual currency that you can trade online and whatnot. One of the problems that I think a lot of people have in conceptualizing what Bitcoin is sort of the name, right? So Bitcoin, coin assumes some tangibility in the form of money, but there's no actual coins in Bitcoin. It's all data. So if I have a digital wallet, I'm not actually holding any Bitcoin. All it's saying, I actually have in that wallet is access to a private key that allows me to send a signal to the entire network in order to, a signal to the entire network that will then trigger a change in the public ledger. So in this regard, Bitcoin is sort of like a protocol like the internet, or like email, or like TCP/IP, which is like a standardized protocol that connects computers and we use for the internet. Bitcoin has its own language. It's called script. So I can write programs onto Bitcoin. There are companies that have popped up that are trying to do second layers of the Bitcoin blockchain that will allow me to actually do smart contracts. So in a lot of ways, Bitcoin is an associational and communicative platform, and the means to access that platform is through this small b virtual currency. So what are the implications of that? The implications are that it's not money like we think it is, because you can do a lot more with it. So for instance, what can you do with Bitcoin that's not money? Well, in a transaction, I can have a lot of different types of data that I can put into a transaction. I can put that I'm going to send 0.2 Bitcoin to Dan. I can put that I'm going to send 0.2 Bitcoin to Dan, and I'm going to put a message in there saying, Dan, thanks for the pizza, right? If I really wanted to. I could also put a picture onto the Bitcoin blockchain. I can put MP3s, right? There's an MP3 of Spock saying live long and prosper. There's a picture of Mr. Burns that someone put up. There's Bible verses. There's political protests, right? And why are they putting it on there? Because it's an immutable public ledger operated from everywhere in the world. So think about it this way. Think about if you're a Chinese dissident who is a Christian, right? They prosecute Christianity in China. So what does some of the Chinese Christians do? They put Bible verses onto the blockchain, onto Bitcoin's blockchain. Just the other day for the Stanford paper, I posted a bunch of pictures and data and text onto the blockchain in a way that was completely non-financial. So this again gets a little complicated, but I could upload a photo and convert it into a hash function. And I can send 0.0001 Bitcoin, not to any other address, but just to that hash function, thereby immutably timestamping the document onto the blockchain, so no one can ever doubt the validity of when I put it on. No one could ever take that down. There's all sorts of complicated repercussions that occur when you have that ability. So for instance, there are links to child pornography on Bitcoin's blockchain that you just can't get rid of. There are copyright infringed material. There are people who have been doxxed onto the blockchain. I can put your address on there. I can put your social security number on there. And there's no way that you could ever take it down. Right? So it's a powerful tool, potentially for good, but also maybe for bad. But the point is that it's a protocol in the same way as the internet. And the way I like to explain it is, so who here uses Instagram? Right? You all probably use Instagram, right? Let's say the only thing you did with the internet was use Instagram. You would say that the internet is Instagram, but that would be crazy to anyone else, right? Because the internet is so many more things other than Instagram. To say that Bitcoin is digital money is to ignore all of these other applications, because money is only the first application of Bitcoin. So other things that you could do specifically with the Bitcoin blockchain, and we'll get to sort of other blockchains and other things that people are doing, but I can publish things on it, I can timestamp things on it. Each Bitcoin, and again, there's no such thing as a Bitcoin, but each piece of data that the network agrees represents a Bitcoin is traced to its very creation. So meaning, Bitcoin is not fungible in the same way that US dollars are fungible, whereas the same way that gold is fungible. My Bitcoin will say that I received it from Dan, and then Dan received it from Lawrence, and Lawrence received it from Conchetta? Conchetta, right. But, who else? Dylan's Bitcoin will say that he received his from Vanessa, and then Vanessa received it from Caleb. So that means that even though the market might equate both Bitcoins as the same, and you can trade them freely, programmatically, you can do some interesting things because you can trace the provenance of each Bitcoin. So for instance, if University of Miami decided, for instance, to use Bitcoin as a way of gaining admission to this classroom, what you could do is you could set up Smart Reader that scans your digital wallet, and it knows that when my 0.0001 Bitcoin, which is unique to me because it has this provenance, when I scan it, within this system, it knows that I have access to this class. You could do this for like tickets to Marlins games. You can do this for all sorts of cars. There's a proposal that you can have ownership of a car be tied to a particular small amount of Bitcoin, and the car itself would recognize when someone with that Bitcoin goes into it and would start. It would, it's basically like you have your key and you have the push to start. It would just recognize that you own the Bitcoin that.
So you own a court, you could have like almost sharing of that car.
Well, it's not even sharing the car. It's just ownership tied to this digital asset that's on this immutable ledger.
But you could have a number of people to that car.
For sure. And then the other thing that's interesting is, like, let's say I wanted to actually sell you that car. Well, I no longer have to go through a change of title form. All I have to do is signal to the network that now you have that Bitcoin, and now I've drastically cut the costs of transferring an asset. And you can do this across a lot of different types of asset types, a lot of different types of property. For the most part, people aren't exploring Bitcoin specifically for this, or exploring Ethereum for it. But in many ways, Ethereum is a similar type of network, but there's a little more functionality. Other examples, not on Bitcoin, but on Ethereum that people are using for smart contracts. And I guess I should say that the best use of a blockchain is when it's very important for you to have a high degree of security and a high degree of security, but not necessarily a high degree of efficiency. So what does that mean? If I want to send music publishing is a great example. Who had the music publishing idea? Anyone? Okay. So if I want to put like my publishing rights on the blockchain, that's important to me, right? Because those are my livelihood. I want to make sure that it's very clear to everyone in the world, for intellectual property reasons and for just payment reasons, that the song that I write is recognized as one that I've written. Where it makes less sense is when you have frivolous data, potentially, right? Who owns, I don't know, who owns what backpack, right? Something that's insignificant compared to like the structure that you need to actually create the security. So the reason why Bitcoin and Ethereum, these sort of larger blockchains, are so secure is because so many people are actually participating to validate the network. When you try to create your own blockchain, there's a network effect that is not occurring. So for instance, let's say just the four of us in this row wanted to create a blockchain, and we were the four participants. These are sometimes called private blockchains or federated blockchains. What ends up happening is if you wanted to overtake our blockchain, you would just need to hack 3 of our computers, right? Well, someone can hack 3 computers. It becomes a lot harder if all of us are running a blockchain, right? Because now I have to hack everyone, from this side of the room down in order to take over the data. If everyone in the room is doing it, well, then now I have to have 51% of the attack here. So you can imagine if you have something like Bitcoin or Ethereum, where there are millions of people participating in the network, it becomes so expensive and so difficult to actually overtake the network that it's practically impossible. Right now for Bitcoin, we're at basically the nation state level. It's billions and billions of dollars that it would take in energy costs and hardware costs and infrastructure costs to try to falsify a transaction. But you can go to a website called, I think it's called 51crypto.app.
Is it 5-1?
Try 51crypto.
5-1.
Crypto.
1-1.
.app.
What?
No, we get CRYPTO. .app. I think this is, type in 51crypto
And Google.
in Google. But anyway, it'll show you how much it actually costs to attack each Bitcoin, each type of blockchain. And some of them we could attack and completely take over for about $500 to $2,000. And these are people who have built entire businesses on the idea of network security and on the idea of, yeah, here, this one. Oh, Crypto 51, yeah. This is interesting. All right, so Bitcoin has a $112 billion market cap. For every hour, okay, so it would cost 51 times $386,000 to even attempt to attack the Bitcoin blockchain. However, go all the way down. Go all the way down. For Florin Coin, which I don't even know what that is, but has a $7 million market cap, right? 51 times 15 is what? I don't know. It's not that much. You know, a couple $1,000. So you can actually destroy this network for an insignificant amount of money, and that's I think why you need blockchains that are large and decentral and have a network effect. Yeah, is there any questions about sort of the technology side? Then we can talk about maybe business use cases and the hype around the market.
Is there a question?
Yeah.
You were talking about like unlocking a car or something like that.
Yeah.
To transfer like some tiny amount. Would that still like cost you a Bitcoin, or would you like get that or like the small portion of it?
Well, so it's interesting. So there are 21 million Bitcoin that will ever be created. You can divide that number up until I think like 8 decimal points, right? If I'm transferring it to Sarah's digital wallet, it's only costing me the network fee for transferring it. So that's going to be taken out of that Bitcoin, but it's insignificant. And to show you how insignificant it is, about a week ago, $194 million in Bitcoin was transferred. How much do you think it cost to transfer that money? Just guess. Couple thousand, right? I'll tell you how much it would cost. I'll tell you how much it would cost to do it through a bank.
Yeah,
right?
that's a better.
To do it through a bank, it would cost about $1.9 million to transfer.
How much?
It would cost about $1.9 million to transfer $190 million from my account to your account, right? It costs 10 cents in Bitcoin. So think about how revolutionary that is in terms of how we use and think about money. Would you be able, let's say, here's another good example. Let's say you're on social media and you see a post you really like. And that post was written by someone in Iran. And you said, oh, you know what, I want to tip that person for that post. If you were to try to wire them, it would cost you probably 10 to 15 bucks to try to give them $10 in a tip. With Bitcoin, because it's an instantaneous atomic transaction, because I'm not actually sending anything. I'm just telling everyone in the network, hey, on the record, just note that I've sent him, some amount of money. That allows me to send micro payments. And there's all sorts of other technologies that are being built on top of Bitcoin to facilitate this. One of them is called the Lightning Network, which is sort of interesting. Another one's called Rootstock. But I could potentially send, what's your name?
Cody.
I can potentially send Cody a quarter of a penny instantly for free. And you might think, well, why would anyone want to send that small amount of money? Well, think about if you had, if you could have social media accounts in which your posts are being monetized in a peer-to-peer fashion, and not just because you're giving private data to a central company, right? Here's another pretty interesting example: is Park by Phone. I just use Park by Phone right here, right? It's an annoying, awful application. What happens? I have to go and I have to park my car in a spot. I have to look for a sign. I then have to go and type in that code. They charge me 80 cents per every $2 I spend, so it's sort of expensive relative to the amount I'm spending. if I am still in the car, if I'm still in that parking spot after 2 hours, I'm gonna get a ticket. It's a platform that's filled with friction. What you could do with something like Bitcoin or Bitcoin through the Lightning Network is you can actually set it up. So the parking space has readers on it that recognize when I put my car into it. And it recognizes that it's my license plate. And my license plate is tied to an account. And that account will start triggering instantly a streaming money payment of, let's say, 3 cents every microsecond. I don't know, whatever the equivalent of, $5 an hour. Well, maybe it's less. Maybe it's a third of a cent every second. And then pro rata, that would be $5 an hour. Now I pull in instantly. City of Coral Gables is getting paid, and as soon as I pull out, it stops.
You know what's so great? Coral Gables contacted me that they want to start investigating blockchain.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's
so that's what I'm saying. So
there's a lot of really good applications. Here's another one that I think is sort of intuitive. Let's say you die. You're gonna die, and you're gonna probably die with some amount of money in your bank account. You're gonna die with some amount of assets. Well, right now, what is the process in which you distribute that to people after you pass away? Well, your family's gonna go, and this is gonna happen a long, long time ago, right? Your family's gonna go, and they're gonna look through all your shit, and they're gonna find a will, maybe, and they're gonna take that will to a lawyer. And that lawyer is gonna charge a lot of money to go and find all of your assets, and then distribute those assets as you said in this paper will. Well, that makes sense perhaps if all of your assets are sort of physical. You have to go and hire a sheriff's office or a police officer to go and find your car and then drive your car to like the probate court. And there's all sorts of messy things. But what you could potentially do is put all of these transactions onto a blockchain. And then as soon as there's verification that you passed away, everything is automatically transferred. So as soon as it's verified that you've died, your heirs now have all of your assets. You no longer have to pay an intermediary, a middle person, to distribute it. Another example is insurance. When I was your age, I didn't care about insurance at all. I didn't even understand like what insurance was, and to some degree I still don't. But insurance is actually pretty interesting because what it is you are paying a third party to, in case something catastrophic happens to you or your property. Now, that third party has an interest in not paying you when that occurrence happens. I just had to like file a lawsuit 2 weeks ago against my homeowner's insurance for $150,000 because I had a pipe burst and they refused to answer. Right? They haven't even said no. They just have not responded in 4 months. So I said, all right, I'm just going to sue and force them to answer on whether they'll pay my claim or not. Well, if I can put potentially an insurance contract onto the blockchain that says, and here's an example.
And this is what you call the smart contract when you're
Yes, is a smart contract is just saying when X happens, Y will then occur, right? So it's sort of a misnomer, the name, because it doesn't have to be a legal contract. But here's an example of how insurance is being used, or could potentially be used. Flight insurance. So this is one that's actually already in the marketplace. Flight insurance. I'm going from here to New York. I buy flight insurance that says if the plane is more than 3 hours delayed, I get a complete refund on my ticket. And I still actually get to be on the plane. But it's just I am paying in case that contingency happens. Well, I put that onto the blockchain. I give the insurance company my digital asset, my digital wallet address, rather. As I'm sitting on the plane, as soon as it recognizes, because it's monitoring all of the delays in the world.
No, I'm just
bothering. Okay. It's monitoring all of the plane's flight statuses everywhere in the world, As soon as it recognizes that my plane from Florida to New York is delayed at 2:59, I get nothing, and at 3 hours, instantaneously, the money is in my digital wallet. It's instant. I didn't have to go and call the insurance company, I didn't have to file a claim. It just knew that as soon as something happened, a payout will occur. And because I'm transmitting it in digital money, I didn't have to deal with any of the costs and time associated with actually making transfers of fiat or state-backed currencies. So as you're thinking about ideas, as you're trying to build projects, think about what areas of your life, and sort of in some ways it has to be unique to you, right? What areas of your life do you find yourself having to deal with intermediaries who need to approve what you're doing, but they might not have any idea? As someone who went to University of Miami, this campus is filled with inefficiencies and filled with people who are incompetent and do not know what they're doing. The law school's registrar office is a great example. The amount of time I had to spend just dealing with like signing up for classes, right? The amount of time that I had to spend getting records when I was applying for the bar was absurd. So when you see that there's an ability for you to communicate directly with someone, but under the current system you have to go through someone, well, that's a time where potentially you could use technology to automate it. And it doesn't necessarily have to be blockchain. There's alternatives to blockchains. There's also just ways of doing automatic contracts that are not through a blockchain. Again, blockchains are good when you have something that's very important and you need a lot of security. But you can create a database that's sort of automatic, and if it's
Just even to automate a lot of the inefficiencies
Yeah.
that are through the system. So you want to just in the minute or two, just talk a little bit about, since a lot of these, some students have to go to the next class, is on tokens and
Yeah.
your sense of security versus utility tokens.
Sure.
And
So
just in a, like a short.
yeah. So people will try to sell you anything they think you will buy. So there are thousands and thousands of tokens. Each of these are sort of have a token involved. Some of the tokens, like the Bitcoin token, is needed to actually run the applications you need on the Bitcoin system. Same with Ethereum. However, go all the way to the bottom. Not to disparage any specific one, but just go all the way to the bottom. Florin Coin. I don't know what Florin Coin does, but it's probably likely that the entire platform was created in order to sell the token, because there was a market where you could raise $30, $40, $50 million in 20 minutes by just selling these tokens. So people have tried to come up with justifications. Some saying, well, it's really a utility. It's a utility token, therefore it's not a security in like a legal sense. A security is just an investment contract. It in some ways it's sort of beyond, I think, this discussion because it gets into securities laws. But the point is that not all tokens are created equally. They all serve different functions. And one of the things that I spend a lot of my day doing is on the regulation, trying to figure out how the government, how private business, how international regulators should treat one token versus the other when you have to actually consider different functionalities and how they're presented. But yeah, I'd say 90% of the tokens out there were just ways of capitalizing private companies. It's just fundraising.
And a lot of them were scams too,
Yeah, I mean, there's it's with every technology, it's the first people who are going to adopt it are criminals. So if you got into Bitcoin before 2014, there's like a 90% likelihood that you were really interested in it because you could buy drugs online. It's just because it's a really good tool for buying drugs online. There's all these other applications, but the market dictates what the first one's going to be. The internet was for porn and sending out stolen documents. Now we use it for food reviews. Yeah.
Okay. Why don't we do this? First of all, I want to thank you, Justin.
Yeah.
For coming on. You can do that, and if they want to contact you, can they do that, or?
Yeah, I mean, my email's on,
On justinwales.com.
yeah, you know, plug in my email.
Yeah. Great, and then if you can stay a few minutes, and then we'll wrap up, and then the proposals then of the printout is due on, Monday, okay? And